ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतिरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हे 327:5 अत एव शनैश्चित्तं प्रसक्तम् असतां पति भक्तियोगेन तीव्रेण विरक्त्या न च नयेद्वशम्. It is the duty of every conditioned soul to engage his polluted consciousness, which is now attached to material enjoyment, in very serious devotional service with detachment. Thus his mind and consciousness will be under full control. So directly answering our question of how do we control mind? Very serious devotional service with the detachment. The process of liberation is very nicely explained in these words. Cause of one's becoming conditioned by material nature is his thinking himself the enjoyer, the proprietor or friend of all living entities. This false thinking is a result of contemplation on sense enjoyment. When one thinks that he is the best friend to his countrymen, to society, or to humanity, and he engages in various nationalistic, philanthropic, and altruistic activities, all that is just so much concentration on sense gratification. The so-called national leader or humanist does not serve everyone; he serves his senses only. That is a fact. The conditioned soul cannot understand this because he is bewildered by the spell of material nature, and therefore recommended in this verse that one engage very seriously in the devotional service of the Lord. This means that one should not think that he is the proprietor, benefactor, friend, or enjoyer. He should always be cognizant that the real enjoyer is Krishna. That is the basic principle of Bhakti Yoga. One must be firmly convinced of these three principles. One should always think that Krishna is the proprietor, Krishna is the enjoyer, Krishna is the friend. Not only should he understand these principles himself, but he should try to convince others and propagate Krishna consciousness. So, um, mm, so basically, this very serious devotional service, Prabhupada here is making a very important point that three aspects of this very serious devotional service. One is to always think that Krishna is the proprietor. So this is very serious because this is completely opposite to our current polluted consciousness, uh, which is to enjoy. So these three principles are very critical. So Krishna is the proprietor, Krishna is the enjoyer, Krishna is the friend. I am not the proprietor, I am not the enjoyer. And like Prabhupada is saying, we think that we are friends of all living entities because it is centered on this I am the proprietor, I am the enjoyer. So I am not the proprietor, I am not the enjoyer. Krishna is the proprietor, Krishna is the enjoyer, he is the friend. So actually, this is very deep because our whole material, whole concept of sense enjoyment is based on these two principles, right? Like I am the owner, so I am the enjoyer. So that is why here this very serious devotion service with detachment. Detachment is yukta vairagya, knowing the actual position, knowing our actual position, knowing Krishna's actual position, engaging everything that we have in Krishna service. This is very serious. This is very serious devotional service. As soon as one engages in such serious devotion to the Lord, naturally the propensity to falsely claim lordship over material nature disappears. That detachment is called vairagya. Instead of being absorbed in so-called material lordship, one engages in Krishna consciousness, that is control of consciousness. The yoga process necessitates controlling the senses. Yoga indriya samyamaha. Since the senses are always active, their activities should be engaged in devotional service. One cannot stop their activities. If one wants to artificially stop the activities of the senses, his attempt will be a failure. Even the great yogi Vishwamitra was trying to control his senses by the yoga process, fell victim to the beauty of Menaka. There are many such instances. Unless one's mind and consciousness are fully engaged in devotional service, there is always the opportunity for the mind to become occupied with desires of for sense gratification. So we've discussed this mind. If the mind should not become occupied with desires for sense gratification, mind should become occupied with desires for Krishna consciousness. Uh, so we should have desires on the spiritual platform. Then, and they must be so strong. They must be stronger than the desires on the material platform. Only then our mind and consciousness will get absorbed in that. Mm. But if we don't have any desires on the spiritual platform, then natural state is to have desires on this for sense gratification. And again, for that one has to do very serious devotional service. One particular point mentioned in his words is very significant. He said here, Prasaktam asatam pati. The mind is always attracted by asat, temporary material existence. Because we've been associated with material nature since time immemorial, we have become accustomed to our attachment to this temporary material nature. Mind has to be fixed at the eternal lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Samamana Krishna Padaravindayoho. One has to fix the mind at the lotus feet of Krishna. Then everything will be nice. Thus the seriousness of Bhakti Yoga is stressed in this verse. So very importantly, Prabhupada is highlighting this. So very serious devotional service means first pure devotional service and then intense devotional service, both. Pure because I am not the enjoyer, I am not the proprietor, so it's pure. Mm. And intense because otherwise, we are. If intense means we should have spiritual desires, so that our desires for sense gratification will dwindle, will become small or insignificant. Mm. So these two are very, very important. Uh, And when we start thinking that, okay, Krishna is a proprietor, Krishna is the enjoyer, that is why Bhakti Vinod Thakur, his Sharanagati series of songs, he says that uh, one who is surrendered, Atma Nivedanam, he should just think of himself as a servant of his house. His house is a temple, he is a servant of his house. So automatically this mood that I am the proprietor, I am the enjoyer will go. Mm. Because this is where we maximum we think of ourselves as the proprietor home. Mm. So we have to stop thinking that I am the proprietor. We have to make Krishna the proprietor. We have to make Krishna the enjoyer. Make meaning in our consciousness. Is anyway the proprietor is the enjoyer. In our consciousness, we should make it clear that Krishna is the proprietor, Krishna is the enjoyer. I am the servant. Mm. And engage intensely in trying to please him. And only by doing this will our mind and consciousness come under full control. See, either we are people who are working there at office. Office again, one gets the feeling that if we are people reporting to us, etc., we feel we are the boss. At home, yeah, this is the place for enjoyment. Mm. And how do I enjoy? By getting money. So if we remember that Krishna is the boss, Krishna is the owner. I'm just a servant earning for Krishna's to run Krishna's home. Then our mentality at work will also get purified. Our mentality at home will also get purified. Obviously, then mind and consciousness will come under full control. It's a very powerful uh, purport. Prabhupada is saying specifically that serious devotional service means I am not the proprietor, I am not the enjoyer. That is serious. Mm. So we can't engage in Mishra Bhakti. If you engage in Mishra Bhakti, meaning I am okay, part-time enjoyer, then obviously mind and consciousness will not come under control. यमादिभिर् योगपथैर् अभ्यसन् श्रद्धयान्वितः मयि भावेन सत्येन मत्कथा श्रवणेन च. One has to become faithful by practicing the controlling process of the yoga system. Must elevate himself to the platform of unalloyed devotional service by chanting and hearing about me. Clearly, direct path. So this is yoga plus bhakti combination. So there's yoga. Uh, by doing yoga, what happens? Indriya samyama. And then what do we do after that? Engage in pure devotional service by chanting and hearing. So here yoga is process is taken more as a stepping stone to bhakti. Yoga is practiced in 8 different stages: yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Yama and niyama mean practicing the controlling process by following strict regulations. Asana refers to sitting postures. These help raise one to the standard of faithfulness in devotional service. Practice of yoga by physical exercise is not the ultimate goal. The real end is to concentrate and to control the mind and train oneself to be situated in faithful devotional service. Of course, we don't have to do this necessarily, right? By just the process of bhakti only, the mind can come under control, provided it is done with intensity. The process of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, mechanical process to control the mind. Mm. This might help those who are engaged in Vaidhi Bhakti without any kind of attraction. But if we have some kind of attraction to Krishna, uh, then we don't need all this artificial process. Mm. So we can directly engage in Bhakti. Bhavena or Bhava is a very important factor in the practice of yoga or in any spiritual process. Buddha Bhava Samanvitaha. One should be absorbed in the thought of love of Krishna. When one knows that Krishna is the source of everything and that everything emanates from him, then one understands the Vedic Vedanta aphorism Janmadhyasya Yataha, so the original source of everything. And then he can become absorbed in bhava or the preliminary stage of love of Godhead. So Prabhupada is saying that just by Sambandha Gyan, one can actually become absorbed in bhava. But the whole point is one should be absorbed in thought of love of Krishna. Just this, this one. I mean, this is so far away from where we are. We are absorbed in the thought of this material world. So from being absorbed in the thought of this material world to being absorbed in the thought of love of Krishna, it's a long way to go. And very high, esteemed goal. So if you are not going to engage very seriously, and what is the central anga of our practice of bhakti is chanting Hare Krishna. So if we are not able to chant in Shuddhanama, meaning if we are not able to chant free of all offenses, aparadhas, which includes not being inattentive. So if you're free from all aparadhas and doing attentive chanting, then we come to Nama Bhasa and soon we will come to Shuddha Nama. Then we'll be absorbed in thought of love of Krishna. But for that, first we have to get rid of offenses, and we have to actually put energy behind our chanting. This is our problem. Actually, our chanting is become so mechanical that we just by default have assumed saying that my mind will get distracted, and we have just given it, left it, and said, okay, enjoy. Uh, Sometimes when you are very, very enthusiastic, we put some effort to bring back the mind. And otherwise, generally, the effort is also very lukewarm. Okay, this is all I can do. Then we cannot achieve Krishna Prema. Mm. So the 2 hours of chanting sadhana that we do is the most critical. The most critical. Mm. That is why that whole emphasis on that morning program, being in the association devotees, chanting in front of Tulsi Maharani, etc., is recommended because otherwise there's little hope. There's little hope to make of progress. Mm. So time and again we have to just remind ourselves that we have to really chant nicely. Otherwise, by default, we will just mm, come down to mechanical chanting. So I've told this also, like, if we are not chanting well, we should at least feel remorseful. We should feel bad, repenting. We should feel the pain that we are not chanting nicely. Krishna's name is not different from Krishna, but I'm not able to appreciate that. I'm calling Krishna and then I'm engaging in thinking about other useless material things that I'm attracted to. नाम्नामकारि बहुधा निज सर्वशक्तिस् तत्रापित नियमित स्मरणेन काला एतादृशी तव कृपा भगवन् ममापि दुर्दैवम् ईदृशम् इहाजनि नानुरागः दुर्दैवम्. It's my big misfortune. Nanuragaha, there is no attachment to the name. We should feel pained by this state of affairs. Mm. And we can only do this only if we are focused on day every day, right? So every day has bhakti has to be better than the previous day, right? At least every day to start with, if not every moment. And then we should at least evaluate our chanting previous day and say, okay, today can I do better chanting? Can I try? Can I beg for mercy? Because we have to come to the stage of being absorbed in thought of love. Yeah. Rupa Goswami explains very nicely in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu how this bhava, a preliminary stage of love of God, is achieved. He states that one first of all has to become faithful. Faith is attained by controlling the senses, either by yoga practice, following the rules and regulations, and practicing the sitting poses, or by directly engaging in bhakti yoga as recommended in the previous verse. Of the 9 different items of bhakti yoga, the first and foremost is to chant and hear about the Lord. That is also mentioned here. Matkatha Shravanena cha. One may come to the standard of faithfulness by following the rules and regulations of the yoga system. And the same goal can be achieved by simply chanting and hearing about the transcendental activities of the Lord. The word cha is significant. Bhakti yoga is direct and the other process is indirect. But even if the indirect process is taken, there is no success unless one comes fully to the direct process of hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. Therefore, the word Satyena is used here. In this connection, Swami Sridhara comments that Satyena means Nishkapatena, without duplicity. The impersonalists are full of duplicity. Sometimes they pretend to execute devotional service, but their ultimate idea is to become one with the Supreme. This is duplicity, kapata. The Bhagavatam does not allow this duplicity. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is clearly stated, Paramo Nirmatsaranam. This treatise of Srimad Bhagavatam this treatise Srimad Bhagavatam is meant for those who are completely free from envy. The same point is again stressed here. So free from envy means nishkapatya, no duplicity. Unless one is completely faithful to the Supreme Person of Godhead and engages himself in the process of hearing and chanting of the glories of the Lord, there is no possibility for liberation. Hmm. So the process of chanting and hearing has to be given utmost importance. Uh, so there is Nama Kirtan, Rupa Kirtan, Guna Kirtan, Leela Kirtan. Nama Shravan, Rupa Shravan, Leela Shravan, etc. So there's chanting and hearing about name, form, activities, and pastimes. Everything. And only then we can actually absorb ourselves. So chanting and hearing both. So if we hear attentively, then we would also want to chant. Meaning, if we hear nicely, then we would also want to repeat. And we should try to repeat. We should try to, whatever we hear in our Shravanam, we should try to tell others. Or it could be. It could be somebody in the house, it could be some other devotee friend, or it could be new people preaching to them according to their level of understanding, acceptance. Mm. So both Shravanam and Kirtanam have to go on. And the most important part of this process is chanting. Because by chanting, we will be able to actually remember the Lord all the time. See, if suppose say we have to remember the pastimes of Krishna, and we are not so pure yet to actually just wherever we are, just simply start thinking about the pastimes of Krishna. But by this process of chanting, we'll be chanting, we can chant anywhere. And um, the powerful power of chanting is as soon as we chant, immediately when we make advancement, immediately the form of the Lord comes in our mind, uh, the qualities come in the mind, and then pastimes also come. So immediately we are absorbed in uh, Rupa, Guna, Leela. Uh, so this chanting process is so critical because otherwise, generally we can't just switch to remembering about Krishna. So this chanting process is very key. As soon as we start chanting Hare Krishna, immediately. So we should do this process very, very diligently with full uh, mm, commitment, with full energy, enthusiasm. Saha nishchaya dhairya. There is no enthusiasm to chant. Then laziness creep in, indifference will creep in. Uh, all this will come. So we should be enthusiastic. No, I'm not going to let my mind get distracted. And if the mind gets distracted, I want to pull it back. Chant with enthusiasm. सर्वभूतसमत्वेन निर्वैरेण प्रसङ्गतः ब्रह्मचर्येण मौनेन स्वधर्मेण बलीयसा. In executing devotional service, one has to see every living entity equally, without enmity towards anyone, yet without intimate connections with anyone. One has to observe celibacy, be grave, and execute his eternal activities, offering the results to the Supreme Person of Godhead. A devotee who seriously engages in devotional service is equal to all living entities. So, again, that serious devotional service is further definition. There it was Krishna is the proprietor, Krishna is the enjoyer, Krishna is the friend. Now, everybody, all are equal. There are various species of living entities, but a devotee does not see the outward covering. He sees the inner soul inhabiting the body. Because each and every soul is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, it does not see any difference. That is a vision of a learned devotee, which means that we should be on the Brahmabhuta platform, where we don't see make differences on the bodily platform, we only see the soul. As explained in Bhagavad Gita, a devotee or a learned sage does not see any difference between a learned Brahmana, a dog, an elephant, or a cow, because he knows that the body is the outer covering only, and that the soul is actually part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. A devotee has no enmity towards any living entity, but that does not mean that he mixes with everyone. This is very important. Hmm. So when we say don't asat sanga tyag, that means that no intimate connection. Hmm. So no enmity towards anyone, no intimate connections with anyone except devotees. Devotees only intimate connections. That too like-minded devotees, devotees superior to us. Our devotees are the same level as us. Friendship and devotee superior to us. Service mindedness. But with all others, no enmity, but no intimate connection. That does not mean that he mixes with everyone. That is prohibited. Aprasangataha means not to be in intimate touch with everyone. A devotee is concerned with his execution of devotional service and he should therefore mix with devotees only in order to advance his objective. He has no business mixing with others. For although he does not see anyone as his enemy, his dealings are only with persons who engage in devotional service, or with others only to as much extent as is required because we are living in this material world, or for preaching. A devotee should observe the vow of celibacy. Celibacy does not necessitate that one be absolutely free from sex life. Satisfaction with one's wife is permitted also under the vow of celibacy, but this is only for procreating children. The best policy is to avoid sex life altogether. That is preferable. Otherwise, a devotee can get married under religious principles and live peacefully with a wife. A devotee should not speak needlessly. Serious devotee has no time to speak of nonsense. He is always busy in Krishna consciousness. Whenever he speaks about Krishna. Mauna means silence. Silence does not mean that one should not speak at all, but that he should not speak nonsense. He should be very enthusiastic in speaking about Krishna. Another important item described here is Swadharmena, or being exclusively occupied in one's eternal occupation, which is to act as the eternal servant of the Lord, to act in Krishna consciousness. Hmm. The next word, Baliyasa, means offering the results of all activities to the Supreme Lord. A devotee does not act on his personal account for sense gratification. Whatever he earns, whatever he eats, whatever he does, he offers to satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Yat karoshi, yat juhoshi, yat darasi. So this is karma yoga, because this swadharmena means one is being engaged as a servant, being engaged as the eternal servant, doing work, offering results to Krishna. Mm. So this is for grihasthas, and every all devotees should be mauna and no speak of nonsense. Grihastha should observe. Everybody should observe celibacy. Mm. And celibacy means only restricted sex life for grihasthas, only for matters of procreation, getting children, not otherwise. And Prabhupada is saying, yeah, it's better to avoid altogether, possible. So, this is a practical guidance of how one actually executes devotional service. One has to see every living entity equally, without enmity, but without intimate connections also. One has to observe celibacy, be grave, and execute his eternal activities, offering the result to the Supreme Lord. यदृच्छयापलब्धेन सन्तुष्टो मितभुन्मुनिः विविक्तशरणः शान्तो Maitra Karuna Atmavan. For his income, a devotee should be satisfied with what he earns without great difficulty. He should not eat more than what is necessary. He should live in a secluded place and always be thoughtful, peaceful, friendly, compassionate, and self realized. Amazing sloka. Hmm. Be thoughtful, peaceful, friendly, compassionate, and self realized. Hmm. Everyone who has accepted a material body must maintain the necessities of body by acting or earning some livelihood. Devotee should only work for such income as is absolutely necessary. He should be satisfied always with such income and should not endeavor to earn more and more simply to accumulate the unnecessary. Now we read all this and we say this is not applicable to me. A person in the conditioned state who has no money is always found working very hard to earn some with the object of lording it over material nature. Kapiladev instructs that we should not endeavor hard for things which may come automatically without extraneous endeavor. He instructs that we should not endeavor hard for things which may come automatically without extraneous labor. Mm. Meaning whatever we are supposed to get, we will get without extraneous, too much labor. It will come automatically. Exact word used in this connection is yadrichaya, means that every living entity has a predestined happiness and distress in his present body. And this is called the law of karma. It is not possible that simply by endeavors to accumulate more money a person will be able to do so. Otherwise, almost everyone would have been on the same level of wealth. In reality, everyone is earning and acquiring according to his predestined karma. According to the Bhagavatam conclusion, we are sometimes faced with danger or miserable conditions without endeavoring for them. And similarly, we may have prosperous conditions without endeavoring for them. We are advised to let these things come as predestined. We should engage our valuable time in prosecuting Krishna consciousness. In other words, one should be satisfied by his natural condition. If by predestination one is put into a certain condition of life which is not very prosperous in comparison to another's position, one should not be disturbed. He should simply try to utilize his valuable time to advance in Krishna consciousness. Advancement in Krishna consciousness does not depend on any material, prosperous, or distressed condition. Materially prosperous or distressed condition. It is free from the conditions imposed by material life. Very poor man can execute Krishna consciousness as effectively as a rich man. One should therefore be very satisfied with the position as offered by the Lord. Very powerful paragraph. I suggest everybody to please read this again and again. 327.8. Actually, it is completely summarizing the mood in which we have to live as Grihasthas. Very, very clear without any confusion. Without no confusion, right? Every instruction is crystal clear. If we can actually live like this, what will happen? We will have all the time to make progress in Krishna consciousness. Utilize this valuable time to advance in Krishna consciousness. And we don't depend on materially prosperous or distressed condition. Okay, everything is good, I will do, or I will wait till everything becomes all right. And there's nothing like everything becoming all right in this material world. So whether prosperous condition or distressed condition, one has to simply use valuable time to advance in Krishna consciousness. It's not that whether one is prosperous or distressed, one has to just do bhakti. No, one has to do bhakti such that one can make advancement. The idea is to make advancement. So one has to be satisfied. Satisfied with whatever Krishna is giving. Just be satisfied. Actually, Krishna talks about this in the 4th chapter Bhagavad Gita. Saying one who, in this discussion of karma, vikarma, karma, he says that one who engages in akarma is satisfied because he knows the law of karma. So just be satisfied with whatever it is. Another word here is mitabuk. One should eat only as much as necessary to maintain body and soul together, not for the tongue. Of course, initially we encourage people to eat as much as possible as required or as they want. Prasadam. That is to just pull them out of that attachment taste for non-prasadam. So once they get hooked on to prasadam because they're just eating to their heart's stomach's content, uh, then they will not be attracted by non-prasadam. But the next stage for the devotee making progress is to eat only as much as necessary. One should not be gluttonous to satisfy the tongue. Gluttonous means like eat voraciously. Grains, fruits, milk, and similar foods are allotted for human consumption. One should not be excessively eager to satisfy the tongue, and that which is not meant for humanity. Particular devotee should eat only prasada or food which is offered to the person devoted. It's very clear. No Jain food, no non-offered food. Very simple. Simple instruction. We just you know just misinterpret it for our own convenience. That's all. His position is to accept the remnants of those foodstuffs. Innocent foods like grains, vegetables, fruits, flowers, and milk preparations are offered to the Lord, and therefore there is no scope for offering foods which are in the modes of passion and ignorance. This is one part. Next, devotee should not be greedy. It's also recommended that devotee should be muni or thoughtful. He should always think of Krishna and how to render better service. So this is thoughtfulness. Thoughtfulness means how do I render better service? Hmm. That should be his only anxiety. This should be an anxiety. It should be an anxiety, and it should be the only anxiety. Some people, they don't want anxiety. They don't take spiritual anxiety, non-material anxiety. Some people who are by nature have a lot of anxiety. They are anxious about material things and spiritual things. But a devotee is not anxious about material things, but is absolutely anxious about rendering service to the Supreme Lord. As a materialist is always thoughtful about improving his material condition, a devotee's thought should always be engaged in improving his condition in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, he should be a Muni. The next item recommended is that a devotee should live in a secluded place. Generally, common man is interested in pound, shillings, and pence or materialistic advancement in life, which is unnecessary for a devotee. Materialistic advancement is unnecessary for a devotee. A devotee should select a place of residence where everyone is interested in devotional service. Oh, what a powerful statement. Generally, therefore, a devotee goes to a sacred place of pilgrimage where devotees live. It is recommended that he live in a place where there is no large number of ordinary men. But unfortunately, we are all living in situations where there is large number of ordinary men. It's very important to live in a secluded place, Vivikta Sharana. Mm, The next item is Shanta, peacefulness. Devotee should not be agitated. He should be satisfied with his natural income, eat only as much as he needs to keep his health, live in a secluded place, and always remain peaceful. Devotee should not be agitated. Peace of mind is necessary for prosecuting Krishna consciousness. Next item is Maitra, friendliness. Devotee should be friendly to everyone, but his intimate friendship should be with the devotees only. With others, he should be official. He should say, yes, sir, what you say is all right. But is not intimate with them. Devotee should, however, have compassion for persons who are innocent or neither atheistic nor very much advanced in spiritual realization. So one has to be friendly to devotees, one has to be compassionate towards non-devotees. A devotee should be compassionate towards them and instruct them as far as possible in making advancement in Krishna consciousness. Devotee should always remain Atmavan or situated in a spiritual position. He should not forget that his main concern is to make advancement in spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness. And he should not ignorantly identify himself with the body or the mind. Atma means mind, body or the mind, but here the word Atmavan especially means that one should be self-possessed. He should always remain in the pure consciousness that he is spirit soul and not the material body or the mind. That will make him progress confidently in Krishna consciousness. And actually, if we can just meditate on this verse and purport, we can make serious advancement. I mean, this is like really amazing summary of how the devotee should live life. There can't be any doubts after reading this. And if you can simply live as per this instruction, I think we should all, really make note of this verse, read the purports multiple times, read the purport multiple times, and try to live according to this. I think it will just simply put us on the path back home, back to Bharat. Very quick, make very quick progress. Okay, I'll stop here. Any thoughts, questions, comments? Very powerful verse, the last one. Okay, no comments. Okay, then we'll close. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha कृपा सिन्धुभ्यो च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. अनंतकोटि वैष्णव की जय. समवेत गौर भक्तवृंद. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Dhanavad
Hare
Pranam.
Krishna.